Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have a koi fish theme for this weekly layout for January, going along with the Chinese New Year theme. If we haven't met, I'm Viv. Welcome to Art with Viv. So let's just jump into it. Now, I have already pre-sketched out my design in my bullet journal and with pencil. So I've gotten my layout. It's just a simple weekly layout. That seems to be what works the best for me. If you want to follow me on Instagram, Art with Viv, that's my handle, and I would love to see you over there. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just taking some watercolor markers, and these are the Tombow dual tip brush markers. They have a bullet tip and a brush tip. If you don't have these, it's perfectly fine to use whatever markers that you have. Be careful if you're using alcohol-based markers, because they will bleed through, and you don't want that. You don't want it to bleed through to this other side of the paper. But now these are water-based markers, so that's what I suggest. You don't have to use Tombow though. Use whatever you have. You don't have to follow the same colors that I'm using. You can change your color scheme if you'd like. But the first thing I did was I went ahead and I colored in his fins, or their fins, and a few of the dots on their body. Then I decided to go with a really pale blue, and I'm just going to go ahead and color in that water with my pale blue. And I'm making sure that I make my strokes all go horizontally. I don't want to change the direction of my strokes. I don't want to color diagonally or up and down. I want to keep my strokes smooth and even, going from side to side, so that it gives a better look. If you start changing the direction of your strokes, you're going to have a messy looking page. It's going to be overlapping. It's just not going to look good. So try to keep those strokes even and in the same direction. Now, I decided to do koi because koi do have a significance to the Chinese, and since I am just sort of celebrating the Chinese New Year, I decided to add these to my journal. It's two koi, and they're just sort of swimming around a lotus flower. Now, koi are just carp. They're freshwater carp, and they usually swim in pairs, and that means that they represent like love and affection. I mean, they've symbolized that in many cultures, love and affection. But they also symbolize many different things in Chinese culture. In Chinese culture, they represent fame and harmony, wealth, social standing, harmony in your family. They are also in feng shui, and they are a favorite for symbolizing abundance as well as perseverance and strength. And that is probably coming from the myth that a carp or koi can actually become dragons. And their colors also mean things. If you have a black koi, that symbolizes father and strength. A red is mother and passion. If you have gold, that's wealth and prosperity and luck. White and red is life changes and transformation. The lipstick koi, and those are the koi that have a little bit of red around their lips to make them look like they have lipstick on. They're usually white. That's, of course, love and luck. And silver is representative of business and wealth. But the Chinese do have just like a really good myth about these. I enjoyed reading about it. I always research things when I'm getting into them. And the legend has it that just a long time ago, that there was an abundance of golden koi in the Yellow River in China. And there were so many of them that it made the water sparkle like a stream of gold. It just looked like a golden river running through the landscape. And these koi, they would swim upstream, and they would try to persevere through all the obstacles that they would come through. And of course, if you're swimming upstream, you're going against the current. So they were building strength as they went. And they would finally get to what is called the Dragon Gate. And what the Dragon Gate was this really immensely tall waterfall that the koi could not seem to be able to get over. And they would try. Now, some of the koi, they're like, no, not even going to try it. They'd turn back and go to safer waters. They're like, nah, man, nah. But some of the koi, they would stay and they would attempt to jump and surpass the waterfall, try to get over it. And of course, this was pretty amusing to the spirits of the river, or the river spirits, whatever the Chinese called them. They would laugh at the koi and they thought it was great fun. They would poke fun at them. And it was just a source of great entertainment for the river spirits. But then, that little group of koi, they persisted, they kept trying, and this went on for hundreds of years. They would keep trying, they would fail, the river spirits would be laughing at them, and eventually, though, every time they tried and failed, they would gain strength, and they would gain a little experience, and they would learn new techniques, and finally, one koi said, you know what, I think I got this. So what he did was he decided he was going to try a little different strategy. So he went straight to the bottom. Just straight to the bottom of the river. And then he built up as much speed as he could coming back up. And he leapt out of the water and swam as hard as he could up the walls of that waterfall until he finally made it. And he reached the top, he got over, and then he just continued to swim upstream. And, those river spirits that have been making fun of them, they were watching this and they were like in awe. They're like, oh my gosh, this little koi did it. He did it. He did the impossible. And so as a reward to the koi, they transformed him into a golden dragon as a reward. And what's significant about golden dragons in Chinese mythology is that they are the ultimate symbol of power and strength. So I'm sure there's like a little moral of the story there, that you really need to keep trying and trying different things and building up your strength and perseverance, and you will finally get over that waterfall and become a golden dragon. That's what I got out of it. I don't know what you got out of it. So back to the markers here. What I've got going on, I did the blue, then I did some orange spots along with the yellow spots on the body of the koi. Then I did a light green on the lily pads, came back in with a medium green that had a little more yellow in it, and now I've got a little hunter green, which is a really deep dark green that I'm just sort of marking in the shadows, and then I'm coming back with that lighter green and blending it out. For that water lily, the actual flower in the middle, I used some of the yellow and orange for the stamen, and I used some dusty roses, some different shades of like a dusty rose and a pink to fill out the flower, to color the flower. I'm just using a little bit of orange here, and I'm coming back in and adding some texture to the fins. But I really think that that myth is pretty interesting. It does teach you a lesson not to give up. And I hope that you take that to heart, especially if you feel like your art is not where you would like it to be. Just keep trying new things, building your strength, building your perseverance, and you will finally become the artist that you want to be. I mean, that goes with anything, though. Any type of activity that you want to be really good at, you have to try. You're going to fail, but you will persevere if you keep at it. So now I just went and got one of my darker blues, and I'm adding in some shadows into that water, but I'm making sure that I'm not covering up all the water. I'm letting a little bit of that light blue shine through so that gives the water some movement and some texture and a little bit more interest and depth. So that's all I'm doing with that darker blue. And I really like the way it looks. Now later on, I'm going to take some white gel pen and add even more texture on top of the water, and it's going to look really pretty, and add a little bit of texture to those fish as well. But this is a nice little design. It's not a difficult design. It is really bright, really colorful, and it's pretty simple. I mean, if you got magic markers or any kind of markers, you can do it. Now, if you want a more detailed and an outline drawing for this, then you might want to consider joining my Patreon. It's only $5 a month. And with that, you get all access to all kinds of bonus content related to my YouTube. And I also explore pastels, gouache, pen and ink, as well as watercolor in my Patreon group. Right now it's mainly watercolor, but we are branching out. So if you want to do that for $5, the $5 a month membership, you can get the outline drawing to this, the list of exact colors I used of Tombow markers with the number and the color name, and a few tips on what to do with it. And so it's really a good deal. For $5 you can't beat that. But anyway, I'll link it below in the description just in case. So now I've got my Micron pen. It's a size 03, and I am just outlining everything. That gives it a little bit more structure. And this is more of an illustration, so I'm not worried about it being realistic. So I like giving it a little bit more structure by outlining everything with my black Micron pen. And then once I get all that done, I'm going to come back with my white Jelly Roll pen. You'll see in a minute, I'll add some highlights, I'll add a little texture, and it's really going to start to come to life, just layering all these different types of things onto the fish. And I think, I love the little whiskers that the carp have on them. It reminds me of catfish here in the South. But I also noticed that the Chinese dragons have those same little whiskers that come out from their mouth. And it just kind of fits in with the carp becoming, being able to become the dragon in the myth. So I think it's pretty cool. And it's just one thing I noticed. I know I notice weird things, but it's one of the things I noticed. Now I've got my Jelly Roll pen, and what I'm doing here is I'm just adding some scales, and I'm just drawing backward C's and overlapping them, offsetting them and overlapping them so that they look like scales. It's nothing to it. I got a little closer here so you can see better what I'm doing, and I'm going straight over even the spots. I'm just going right over them, not even worrying about them. Add some highlights to the flower and to the lily pads, just wherever I think it would look good. Again, this is more illustration than anything, so I'm just adding where I think some highlights would go, not being really fussy or picky about it. Just having faith that it's going to come out okay. And just add a little highlights around his gills and on his fins. And we're just going to go ahead in here and add some more of the scales onto the other fish. And if your pen sort of dissolves down into the color, see how it's sort of turned into a pale orange instead of white, you can, once it dries, you can go back over those marks and they will become a little bit whiter. But that is the one thing about my gel pens, they sort of sink down into the color, but it's noticeable enough though that you can see the scales, you can see the texture, so it's not too bad. I would like it to be a little bit lighter. Now I'm just going to add some ripples with my white pen to make it look like the water is moving, giving it some movement and some more texture and depth. So I'm going right over that water with just my Jelly Roll pen, just doing lines and things like that. I'm also making sure that they stay pretty much horizontal. I'm not doing any crazy diagonal or vertical lines. We're going to stay with the way that the water is flowing so that it makes sense. You don't want your water looking like it's not making sense. And you see, I'm not really being too particular with it. I'm just sort of putting it down there. Wherever the lines go, they go. I'm not being really neat about it. I'm just scribbling it in. And I think it looks fine. I like the way these little koi look. I mean, it's simple. And I think anyone can do it. And that's why I decided to show you this one. Soon I will have my February theme up. And I think it's going to be all about love. I just haven't completely decided yet. Now I've actually got a green, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that's a holly green that I'm using for the shadows in the water. And it's sort of a deep blue green, but I thought it made a really nice shadow color. So that's why I went with there. Sometimes you have to experiment. The colors you think, oh, I don't know if that's going to work because it's a green and my water is blue. Sometimes it's the perfect color, just depending on what the base color is. And in this one, it is a blue-green. So now I'm coming in there with some deep red, and I'm going into those scales, just some of the scales, to make some of them look darker. I'm just dotting right in the center of those scales, and that gives it a little bit more variety to the fish and also a little bit more shadow. And just taking my orange in there into the fins and putting in some shadows. Even though the fin's base color is yellow, I'm coming back with orange as the shadow color. Now you could go with a darker yellow if you like. Really, you can mix up, you can change up your whole color scheme. It's up to you. Now I am just taking my Micron pen, and that's the same one I used to outline the fish, and I'm just outlining my layout. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit when I do this. I'm not using a ruler because I don't know. For me, it seems like the ruler takes me longer than to just freehand it. Of course, it's more precise with the ruler, but I'm not all about precise. I love the hand-drawn look, so it doesn't bother me if my lines are a little wonky or wavy. But if it bothers you, use a ruler. But I'm just going to freehand it. I got all of my boxes for my days of the week, and that top box is for content. Then this was for week 3 this past week. So I'm just going to go ahead and color in with some reddish orange the letters and the number, and make the background blue to sort of mimic the koi artwork on the other page. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the top parts where I'm going to put the names and the dates. I'm just going to go ahead and do the headers with a really pale blue and do the days of the week, and then what week it is I'm doing in a pale orange, and then just writing in the days of the week and then the numbers, the dates to the month right up there. And then I'll just erase all of those pencil lines to make it look cleaner. And just going ahead and going around my letters here for week 3 and around the box. And then we're just right in. This is my content. That's what content I'm going to create for this week. And then the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with the dates at the other side. When I get to the bottom, that is Saturday and Sunday. And I just split that one in 2. And there you go. Thank you for watching. And especially for my Patreons, thank y'all so much. I cannot keep doing this without you guys, and I appreciate it. So I hope this was enjoyable to you, and I hope you share it with a friend that you think would get something out of it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again very soon.